guys? Greetings from Houston, Texas. Mike coming at you from AT Astro, Era of Truth, Aspect, and Predictive Astrology. Today we're going to be reviewing some charts today. This is just going to be a little bit of, I guess, practice, a little bit of tutorial, reading a natal chart, just kind of showing you how I go about doing things. I've been reading charts since I was about 11 years old. My mom actually got me into it. But we'll just kind of be doing a little bit of lowdown. I'll be showing you how I kind of break things down. If you don't know how to pull up a natal chart, you can go to astro.com. It's probably one of the best websites you can use to draw up a natal chart. You get the most variety of options. Alright, so when you first go, you go to free horoscopes, you run down, go to the extended chart selection. And then once you get there, you can, you have these two little drop boxes where you can, put in the birth information for whoever you want to go over. As you can see, I have a lot of them loaded up in here. Today, we're going to be doing my dad. I'm going to be showing you, actually, if you know somebody really well and then you do their natal chart for the first time and you know astrology, it's really cool because you're like, oh my god, it makes so much sense. It's really interesting to do. And when I found out my dad's birth time, it was a really, really interesting experience. Also to kind of see how screwed up he is. Me and my dad don't have the best relationship, but I do know him very well. So, alright, so you will click on the chart type. You get to pick what kind of chart you want. They have all these different ones. We'll just be doing a basic natal chart today. You get to run down. You have all these options. Like you can draw aspects to all objects, which will bring up aspects to the ascendant and whatnot. But just for the sake of being able to read the chart more easily, I'm going to leave that unclicked, and I'm going to keep the orbs for the aspects at the standard default level. I do tend to add certain points and asteroids, but I'm pretty judicious about it just for the sake of being able to see things clearly. I use part of Fortune, Vertex, I'll use Lilith, Chiron, Juno. Ceres is pretty interesting to use sometimes too, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. You can show the chart. Alright, so this is my dad's natal chart. So what we see first off is the moon and Leo conjunct the ascendant, and we've got the sun conjunct the north, or conjunct the part of Fortune in the 6th house. We've got Neptune making all these crazy aspects to almost literally everything. We've got Pluto square Venus. Alright, so when you pull it up, you'll see all these aspects being made. These are aspects, these lines. These are oppositions. These are squares. Squares a planet that's 90 degrees roughly away from the planet it's making an aspect to. You see these lines right here, they're called trines. These ones down here, they're called sextiles, 60 degrees away, 120 degrees for the trine, 180 for the opposition, 150 for these green lines, which are in conjunctions. One thing I've noticed is when I look at people who have a history of, I guess, mental instability, or people that have, and granted, it's a really complex topic, but people that have a history of really, really off-putting personalities, having conflict issues with people, mental instability, there tends to be a lot of inconjunctions, sesquiquadrates, which are these little dotted lines right here. It's 135 degree aspect away from another planet. And yeah, if you see a lot of those, you can generally, it makes the chart really complex, but it makes the person really complex too. And it's a lot of difficult energy kind of playing out between the people, between the different parts of the personality, which can create for a lot of problems. But my dad is actually not, my dad's actually relatively successful. He's just got a very off-putting personality. He's, in my opinion, he's a bit of a narcissist, but at the same time, I'm a little bit biased because if you look at the synastry between me and him and the composite chart, it's just laden with conflict. But okay, so for starters, we've got the ascendant right here, which rules the first house. That's the body. That's how you show yourself off to the world. It's got his moon sitting right here at Leo. Leo in itself, because Leo is ruled by the sun, there's a bit of an egotistical sort of flavor to the moon. So, you know, one's emotions are very much centered in the self, centered in the ego, a little bit of a selfishness sort of way. And everybody's selfish to an extent, if you really look at it, if you really, you know, look at things objectively. But you see the moon is sitting right here on top of the ascendant, which, when you see that in somebody's natal chart, shows the emotions are very much right underneath the surface. So he shows his Leo moon on his sleeve, which can come off as him, you know, somebody being very open about their emotions, or in his case, just very loud and annoying. We've also got Mars right here, making a loose conjunction to the moon. But when you talk about luminaries, you're talking about the sun or the moon, generally, if the aspect is within 10 degrees, you can still count it, because those are such important parts of somebody's personality that, you know, any planet coming within 10 degrees of it, especially with the conjunction, it's going to show up. And so we've got the Mars conjunct the moon in the first house, which means the ego drive is infused with his emotional nature. It creates a bullying, domineering sort of quality to it, and then it's all in the first house, so it's like right on his sleeve. It's very easily seen, very easily noticed by people outside, you know, in the outside world. Now, he's got a lot of stuff going on in the 6th house. He's got the part of fortune conjunct the sun in the 6th house. He's got Mercury conjunct Saturn in the 6th house. The 6th house is all about daily work, routine, responsibilities. And he is a very hard worker. Say what you will about my dad, but me and him do not get along, but he is a very hard worker. He will get up and he will work day and night. And whenever I was a kid, I was very, very well provided for. He actually runs his own company, but because of this right here, it's very difficult for him to keep employees. Me being one of them for actually quite some time, because that emotional nature is so powerful and expressed so readily. It's very, very off-putting to many people. He tends to yell a lot. He tends to not really be concerned with anybody but himself, and that's a lot of that Leo energy right there. And he tends to just rub people the wrong way. We've got the ruler of the ascendant in the 6th house with this whole stellium, I guess you could say. And so his ego is very much in, you know, working. He works a lot. He really likes to work. He takes a lot of pride. He's very much a perfectionist. He's one of the best at what he does. I mean, give it to him. He really is. So having the sun sitting right there, his ego is so much in his ability to work that it really has come through in a, you know, in success in his profession, which happens to be he's an electrician, a very good one. So we've got Neptune doing all of this crazy stuff. So we've got Neptune making a square to the moon very closely. You want to look at orbs. You want to see how close the orbs are. If the orbs are closer, they come through much more strongly in the personality. So Neptune is making a square to Mars and to the moon. And you can also look at this table down here to look at the different aspects, and then you can see the orb of the aspects, how off the orb is. Like if it's an exact orb, like if it's a square and the planets are exactly square to each other, they're exactly 90 degrees away, you'll see an orb of 0. So like Uranus is exactly square his Venus, which we'll get into in a moment. And Jupiter is exactly, no, it's a 6-degree orb. Jupiter is off. It's a square, the aspect's still in play, but there's a 6-degree variance there. So the aspect's a lot weaker than the Venus square Uranus, which will come through much stronger in the personality, if that makes sense. Okay, so we've got Neptune making this square to the moon, and it's only at a 1-degree orb, which can make him quite sensitive. He's very sensitive. He tends to take emotional experiences and distort them out of proportion, and it can make for a lot of misunderstandings. Also, he's got it in a loose square to Mars right here, which can make somebody their aggression, their aggressive tendencies can come through as actually quite passive. It's like a passive-aggressive, because Mars is aggressive and Neptune is passive. And a lot of times, it can come through in somebody that, one, can have weird sexual hang-ups or fantasies or fetishes, which I would know nothing about because my fucking dad. But I do know about how it comes through in the way he shows his aggression. And it's not that strong in his personality, but because the orb is actually quite wide, we've got 5, 6, 7 degree orb. That's very wide for a square. Some people wouldn't even count it. It comes through in, I guess, how he will, a lot of times, he will help you out in certain ways. Like, he'll loan people money or stuff like that. And so, but he'll use it against them. So it's sort of like, oh, I was so compassionate towards you. I loaned you this money, but now that even though you've paid me back, I'm going to hold it over your head for the rest of your life. It's kind of one of those weird things. I'm really, really loving this lo-fi hip-hop background music, by the way. This is really, really kind of making my night. All right, so we have got Venus and Sagittarius, his love nature. Now, it's making a square to Uranus, which I think is really interesting because usually that's somebody that doesn't enjoy real conventional relationships. But in his case, he kind of does. There is a little bit of an unconventionality in his relationships if you really get deep down into it. He was with one woman back before I was born, had children with her, split up, didn't tell anybody about those children, married my mother, had me, stayed with my mother for 20 years. They got divorced in a incredibly dramatic fashion, and then he got right back with that same woman 22 years later. And then, boom, surprise, all these children that nobody knew about. I had all these siblings that I had no idea even existed for most of my life. He has his Venus in the 4th house, but it's in Sagittarius. So when you see someone's Venus in the 4th house, it's kind of a homebody type of vibe. But Sagittarius is all about freedom, so it creates this interesting duality. He loves to be mothered, but he won't admit it. He loves to be mothered, but he says he hates being smothered, but he really does love being mothered. He's obsessed with my mom's cooking, even though he's not married to her or speaks to her anymore, but he talks about it constantly. He's got Venus square Pluto in the 2nd house. Pluto's in the 2nd house. That ramps up the intensity of that, because the Pluto's the power pack of an individual. So we've got Pluto in the 2nd house. And so he takes matters of finances very, very seriously. He's all about money. He's obsessed with money. That's all he ever talks about. And granted, it is a loose square to Venus. Venus-Pluto is at a very loose square. It comes through very strongly in his personality. Because, one, Pluto is ruling an angular house, the 4th house. So that has a lot to do with emotional security. And then Venus is ruling his 10th house, as well as the 3rd house. But it is ruling the 10th house. So we have 2 planets that are ruling angular houses making a square to each other. So even though the orb allowance is really wide, it still comes through very strongly in his personality. He seeks to control everyone around him. And that's another part of the whole off-putting thing. He's not good at sharing, especially in his relationships. Jealousy with him and my mom's relationship was a big problem, and it was mostly coming on his end. I remember specifically, he was convinced that my mom was we were one of the first families to have internet back in 1996, back when it first came out, 1997, something like that. And he found out my mom was getting on chat rooms and stuff like that. So he took away the internet and wouldn't allow us to use the internet for 6 or 7 years. Wouldn't allow anybody in the house. It would not allow internet in the house. It was some scary thing, and it would make my mom cheat. So he wanted to control our situation, or he wanted to control the situation to prevent my mom from doing what she wanted to do in a very plutonic way. He also wouldn't let her go to the gym because he was convinced that if she went to the gym, then she was gonna cheat. It's crazy. It's a very, very crazy kind of thing. But that also can be shown, those delusions about what's going on in your life can really be pointed to Neptune. Neptune is still making that square to the moon, which can really distort your emotional perceptions of events, and it's making a square to Mercury. Granted, it's like at a 9-degree orb, but I'm still going to go ahead and count it because he does it. I've seen it. I've seen it come through in his personality. When you see Mercury square Neptune in the natal chart, it's really talking about somebody that has a very muddled. Their mind is muddled. They don't perceive things as they are. They see things for what they want to see. They'll tell lies and believe their own lies. And with, Neptune being at the focal point of this horrifying T-square, it comes through very strongly in his personality. So it makes relating really, really difficult for him, honestly. We've also got Mercury making an in conjunction to Uranus, which ramps up his speed of thought. Now, granted, he thinks fast, very fast, a very, very tricky man to deal with. Sometimes he thinks too fast. He has done things like accidentally fire off guns in the house. I've seen him do some really, really crazy things because his mind goes so fast, especially when he's stressed out, but he can also solve problems really fast. He's extremely mechanically inclined. What's Mercury ruling in his chart? Mercury is ruling the 7th house, the 2nd house, and it's also ruling the 11th house. He's very mechanically inclined. Also, it's in retrograde, and it's ahead of the sun. So, even though there is that really quick speed of thinking, he does, however, in order to really get a concept solidified in his consciousness, I know my dad very well, it takes a little bit of time. Like, if you notice Mercury is retrograde, or it's ahead of the sun, they tend to process things slower. Even if it's not retrograde, but it's still ahead of the sun, it still takes a little while longer to solidify the concept in their thought process. Like, if you see Neptune's dragging farther behind the sun, like it's in a lower degree, or it's in the sign previous, they tend to think a lot faster. They tend to come to conclusions quicker. They tend to pick up on topics quicker. Like, I've noticed that with my personal chart. I'm a Capricorn as well, just like him, but my Mercury is in Sagittarius, and I tend to come to conclusions very, very quickly. I'm able to grasp concepts quicker than him. He has Chiron at the cusp of the 7th and 8th house, so you can really much put it in the 8th house. And I was a little bit weirded out by people saying that Chiron in the 8th house is speaking of some sort of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to get into specifics over it, but after speaking to my grandmother about it and asking her a couple questions related to that subject, she sort of hinted around the fact that something may have definitely happened to him when he was younger. So there's that. Saturn is pretty close to the descendant. It's in the 6th house, so you're kind of getting the feel of both. Like I said, very, very hard worker. The ruler of the chart's in the 6th house. Sun's in the 6th house. Part of fortune's in the 6th house. So him actually getting up off his fucking ass and doing something every day, which he does, is the key to him actually, finding the most support in his life. I mean, you've got Saturn there too, so he also has this feeling that life is never gonna come easy. Also, it's pretty much conjunct the descendant. He's never cheated that we know of in any of his relationships. He takes relationships very seriously. It actually it shows this great contrast to the Venus square Uranus. So we see Venus square Uranus with some conventionality in relationships, but then he takes them very, very seriously. So it's pointing to a great deal of complexity. And also, Uranus is in hard aspect to the moon as well, which really also kind of tones down the propensity for cheating or going astray in relationships. He's actually a pretty faithful kind of guy, just from what I know. Now, what we also got, this is probably the most annoying aspect in his whole personality. We've got Mars in conjunct the sun. This is tricky to deal with because when you see someone's ego and vitality and someone's ego drive, someone's sense of their self and how they get what they want, they're speaking in such a strange way with the in conjunction. What I've noticed is there can be a lot of fears related to being taken advantage of. They always feel like they're going to get taken advantage of by somebody. I don't understand why it manifests this way, but I've noticed it. And he's terrified that he's going to get robbed. That's also the Venus square Pluto aspect. He's terrified he's going to get robbed. He's terrified that if he helps somebody that they're going to turn around and just use it against him. When we were growing up, he had cameras all over our front yard, just in case somebody decided to like egg our house or anything like that. It just creates a really difficult sort of ability to, it's just tricky. It's real tricky. So yeah, this is just a kind of a brief little view of how I go over a natal chart. And I mean, there's more into it. I could, there's a lot of aspects that I really haven't gone over, but this is just one of my little methods of checking out a natal chart and what I've noticed, and hopefully this is helpful to some of y'all guys. I do offer consultations. I do offer teaching lessons. If you'd like to partake in that, just feel free to subscribe to my channel and get a hold of me. I'm also rolling out a new podcast with my close friend Brittany Robinson, and we're calling it Outrage Astrology, and we'll be rolling out our first series of segments fairly soon here. So thank you guys. Until next time.